Hey, this is John Howell here, and in this podcast, well, it's brought to you by officialjohnhowell.com. That's officialjohnhowell.com, and in this podcast, I'm going to talk to you about the fears that we have in our life, and something we need to, maybe you don't know this, or maybe you don't understand this, but fear on both sides of success and failure is actually the thing that's stopping us, and actually is always putting us, or most of us, into a situation where we're playing tug-of-war. You're probably saying, what the hell are you talking about, John? Well, let's get straight into it, shall we? Again, this podcast is brought to you by officialjohnhowell.com. Head on down there for more information about the topic you're about to hear. Alright, anyway, so I'm on my way to the gym, and obviously the gym is a very important tool to anyone's success. Not only physically, but when you physically see progress, you get confidence, and mentally, and there's a whole bunch of other things about fitness. So if you're not working out, at least start to go for walks in the morning, or walks at night, or runs in the morning, and continue building up from there. Lift some weights, and you'll start to feel a lot more happy about yourself. Anyway, so let's actually talk about the topic I started off with, which is about accepting and understanding that there's both sides of the fears. There's both sides of fear that is pulling us towards one another. And what I mean by that is this. In every case, when we're starting to grow out of that everyday shell, meaning the way most people think, and start to get out of that thinking and moving more into the higher achieve thinking, what's going to happen is, and what happens for a lot of people, is there's two sides of the coin. As I said, there's two sides of the fear coin. One thing is people are fearful of failure, or people are fearful of not being enough, but then they're also fearful of success. Now, what's going to happen is whenever you try to go to do something that you can clearly see that you're going to be really successful at it, something inside you starts to get guilty. You start to feel like you're not good enough for it. You start to try to strive for it, but it just doesn't work out properly. Or you just whenever you start to get the feeling of successful in any area of your life, sometimes doing that is actually stepping above the majority of the crowd, and by doing that, you are putting yourself into a position where you're going to be knocked down. I mean, people are going to start saying things to you and putting you down, try to put them to their level. So what ends up happening is that because when we start to achieve that success and we get above most people, what ends up happening is some of our friends that were friends, they now become our enemies, because they think that we think they're better than him. And then because this is so much pain in our life, right? It brings so much pain of being successful, because a lot of people in our immediate circle start to say this is bad, and so on and so forth. You'll start to achieve higher success, and what ends up happening is you start to get a lot of pain in your life because of everyone around you. So you end up doing whatever you can unconsciously. If you have a lot of money, you end up giving away a lot of money, just to get back down to everyone else's level. And therefore, what ends up happening is you start to become fearful of success, because if you're fearful of success, you won't be accepted by the people you want to be accepted by. And if you're not accepted, you won't feel loved. And if you don't feel loved, then what else is there? Makes sense? So we end up going in this vicious circle in our life, and we end up starting to go through that vicious circle of, even if you start to get slightly successful, you got to step above most people's crowd, because most people are stuck in that medium. They want to be successful, but they're not willing to take action. If you do take action, you start to be successful, and then the people who hang around you start to pull you down, and everything we just talked about just then. Makes sense? So, but on the other side of the coin, people are just, maybe people are fearful, and subconsciously we start to say, well, I'm not good enough. Like for me, I know I've made a lot of money from the stock market, and for starters, I didn't do anything. Click a button, make money, and that's it, And, like who am I to make $5,000 in a 1 or 2 day period from a trade? That's when I first started trading. I remember the first time I did that, I was like, hang on a minute, I didn't do any work for it. And sometimes unconsciously you start to think, I didn't deserve this, I didn't earn this. You know what I mean? So you've got to be really, really conscious of the level of, am I being fearful of success at the moment? And being honest with yourself. Honest to yourself is the biggest thing that you can have out there. Now let's flip it to the other side, where fearful of failure, fear that it's not going to work out. Then what happens? And then in that side of the coin, most of us talk ourselves out of even trying to do something, even before we start doing it, because they say it's not going to work. It's not going to work because this. It's not going to work because that. It's not going to work because this. And their language barriers is just talking themselves even out of taking the first step in their life before they even try, because they're fearful of failure. Well, if that's the case, and if you're fearful of failure, guess what? The most successful people in the world are successful because they failed the most. Get used to failing a lot. When you fail a lot, you end up going to hit a success, and when you hit a success, it ends up becoming amazing, and the success generally wipes out all of the failures that you had over that time. Make sense? So this whole podcast is actually based on two sides of being fearful. Fearful of success. Are you actually fearful of success? And be honest with yourself. You know, for me right now, I'm trying to hit that $1 million mark this year. And to me, I've never hit that $1 million mark. And sometimes I've got to pull myself up. When I start to do things, I believe I can do that. I start to unconsciously sabotage myself, for not doing activities and stuff like that. So, am I fearful of that? Am I fearful of that success? And if so, what do I need to do about it to say I deserve this, and I actually all the heartache and all the effort and all the pain I've gone through in the past, I deserve this. How can I subconsciously put that into my brain? And the best way to do that is simply just say it to yourself over and over again. And then the other side of the coin is fearful of failure. Or other fear is fear of not being enough, fearful of not being good enough. And I have that, for me personally, I have that every single day. Fearful of not being good enough for my kids, fearful of being not good enough for the people that I teach. There's a lot of fears out there, right? So every day in life, always make sure that when you are approaching life, when you're going through the day-to-day life, always approach that as in, and think about it. Am I basing my actions based on fear of failure? Am I based it on fear of success? Because if you're basing your decisions or your judgments or your outcomes or your doings on any of those, fear of failure or fear of success, well, what ends up happening, when you act in any sort of fear, you're not really putting your best foot forward. For example, if you start a trading system or you start a health program system, in the back of your mind saying it's not going to work, so why should I start it anyway? But I'm going to try and do it anyway, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? It's not going to work. No matter what you do, you're talking yourself out of it, and therefore you're not going to put your best foot forward. Make sense? So once again, this whole podcast is bringing you over, what are you saying to yourself? Are you fearful of that success? Are you fearful of failure? And are you basing your decisions based on that? See, what I like to do if I really want to achieve a goal, I will say to myself, I'm going to do this until I get that. So for example, right now, I'm building muscle, and I'm going to start cutting down soon, and I want to get a ripped body. So right now I'm around about 10 kilos, around about 20 something pounds, to my ideal weight, a bit over 20 pounds ideal weight. So do I start on the diet for a week, and then after a week of doing a diet and doing some exercise, and I've lost, call it 5 pounds, 2.5 kilos of muscle, 2.5 kilos of fat, do I say, oh, this is not working, it's not working, or it's clearly, this is, and then it's suddenly you fear of that, well, maybe what I'm doing is not working anyway. And then suddenly that fear of, again, me trying to lean down, that fear is, okay, well, the stuff I'm doing right now is probably not going to work, so why would I do it? This is what most people say, right? But then on the other coin, when it comes to doing this, when it comes to leaning down, I might have fearful of success. Oh, if I get really ripped and really lean and get photo shoot ready, some people are going to be judging me. Some people are going to put me down, and my family and my friends, they might look at me, that they might be overweight, but they'll look at me and they'll start putting me down, they might start judging me, and I don't want to go there because that's painful. And before you know it, you start to be judged, you start to be fearful of that success. Makes sense? So, again, that's just an example of that, what we need to understand. So what we need to do is, and what I do is, as an example of that, what I was saying before, I'm going to do this until, what I like to do is, I like to say, I'm going to diet, or I'm going to go on a cut. I'm going to start counting my calories. I'm going to do everything I can possible until I hit my overall goal weight. Now for me, I'm about 90 something kilos right now. I want to be around about 83, 85 kilos. Makes sense? So if you say to yourself, I'm going to do this until I get to that. There's no, or I'm going to try this once, if it doesn't work, I'm going to back off. No. Because remember, the most successful people in life, they are successful because they failed a lot, right? So say, I'm going to do whatever it takes until I get this result. If I have to try 1,000 things. You know, the guy who invented the light bulb, what did he do? I think he tried 1,000 times or something like that, right? Until he got it. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this session. This whole session's been around about understanding that if you're basing decisions on fear and failure, or fear and success, that you end up going to be making, you're not going to put your best foot forward, you're not going to get anywhere anyway. And if you can subconsciously and indirectly tell yourself, I'm going to do this until I get this result, then no matter what you do, you're going to keep trying again and again and again. You're going to try a different approach, you're going to keep trying changing until you'll get results. And I guarantee you, your outcome and your success over a 12-month period will be far greater if you just base your judgments and your decisions based on fear. Because fear will just lead you down the wrong path, right? Getting out there and saying, I'm going to do this until this happens, then guess what? You're likely to get a lot faster, likely to get to the goal a lot faster, a lot quicker, and your success will be yours if you go claim it. So step up, take massive action, and face your fears today.